Hello, pigeon people. Well, this will be part 3 of my rant on sparrowhawks and peregrines. I hope there's still people out there listening. Right, so as I've said in the past, I kept pigeons years ago, and then I got out of them for one reason or another. It was nothing to do with hawks because there was none. And then I wanted to come back into them. So what I did was I got some, well, hard to say what they were. The man who I got them from told me that they were Iranian high flyers. And I got back into them. And then these birds didn't get out a great deal because where I was living at the time, I was kind of in between going to be moving and stuff, so they never got out. But when they did get out, basic magic roundabout that they used to do, and I'm going to have to be totally honest, I found them boring. And the reason I hadn't put enough thought into it. I knew I wanted high flyers because I thought they would have the best kind of defence against peregrines and sparrowhawks. So I started doing a bit more research on it, and I wanted a pigeon that fitted in with me. I don't want pigeons that go up there and fly for 15 hours. I've never ever in my life seen the point of that. I've never seen the point of wanting pigeons to fly into the dark, as they call it. It's not a natural thing for a pigeon to do, and I don't know what a person gets from that, apart from bragging rights to say, well, my birds can fly 18 hours. That's not what I want. For me, as a person keeping pigeons, it's about watching them. That's the most important thing, is watching them. There's no way I can stand there for 15 hours, 20 hours, even 5 hours watching pigeons. I can't do it. I have stuff to do. There'd be no fun in that for me. So I started looking around at different breeds. So what I was looking for was a high-flying pigeon that doesn't fly for these kind of hours. So I was looking for something shorter flight time, but the main thing I wanted was something more athletic. So the two birds that I looked at that would give me this, what I wanted, was the Budapest High Fly, which I have now, obviously you've seen, and the other one was the Vienna High Flyer. Now these birds are similar. The Vienna High Flyer is a kind of a strange looking bird. I find it quite an attractive bird, but the bulk of people seem to think it's ugly and it's freaky, but I don't see that. So anyway, Budapest High Flyers. So what's good about them for me? One, they have a flight time of something like, most people will tell you what you read will be between 2 and 4 hours. I don't get that. I get about an hour. And that's great. Well, actually, I prefer a bit more, but it's not bad because I can actually stand there and watch them. And then I'll watch them go up, I'll watch them fly, I'll drink coffee while I'm in the yard. And that's... most people can fit that in. But for them to be flying for like 15 hours, I mean, no. Always remember that the longer your birds are up there, the more chance they're going to get taken. You've got to think of that as well. So this is what I wanted. I wanted a bird that flew high. It would fly for a few hours, and it was quick. The quickness of the bird was the important thing as well. I needed something with speed. And I'm going to say, like, again, the two birds that fit the bill, there's possibly more out there, Budapest High Flyer and a Vienna high flyer. So right, I live in an area that's got hawks, and it's got peregrines. Now, this particular breed, I've been flying for about 3 years. So in 3 years of flying Budapest high flyers, have I had attacks? Yes. I've had peregrines come after them, and I've had sparrowhawks come after them. So in 3 years, how many have I lost? I've lost a grand total of none. I haven't lost one. I've had 2 come back with holes in the back, but they made it back, and them birds are back out there flying again after they healed up. I do actually have footage of that if anyone's interested. I actually grabbed it. I grabbed my phone and I took it with the phone, so the footage isn't great, but it's basically the state these birds came back. I didn't even see them. This is why I hate sparrowhawks, because these are the ones that chew holes in the back, get them on the floor, eat them alive. But they both managed it back. I've seen them with peregrines, and I've seen them when on the odd occasion when you do catch the sparrowhawk kind of in the open. I haven't lost one bird, and all around me people are losing birds. And I'll say it again, bulk of them are rollers, and it's because they're too slow and they're too predictable. My birds aren't. They'll twist, they'll turn, they move up, they do these little half turns. It's very hard for any bird to creep up on mine. They don't do these big swooping circles, they do very short, tight ones. They'll move clockwise, anti-clockwise, up and down. And this is why they can't fly for 5 and 6, 10 hours, because they burn up so much energy in that short amount of time that's it. You've got to remember, when you get things like a peregrine or a sparrowhawk, these things are very similar to something like a cheetah or a lion, in the fact that they'll single something out, they'll single a bird out and they'll go for it. But the problem that they only have 2 or 3 runs in them, like a cheetah does. It can only do it for 2 or 3 times and then it's spent. Then it has to stop and it has to rest. And that's one of their weaknesses. So if you've got a bird that can move quick, and it's very, I'm going to say acrobatic in a sense, this helps a great deal. I've seen peregrines coming in fact I've seen them where there's been 2 of them at a time, and they've come in for my birds. And the weird thing about it, my birds don't see, I'm not sitting here saying I'm never going to get caught out, because one day I probably will lose 1 or 2, but I've been flying these birds for 3 years and I haven't lost one. So when these birds come in, my birds normally see them, because these birds of mine, and most Budapest, I'm going to say, are moving around and changing their angle, and they're kind of all over the place, so they do get to see it before they get hit. And when you watch these peregrines come in, I remember the first time I seen it, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, that this peregrine had come in with the speed it did, and then it was moving left and right and twisting, and it was going after a bird, and I couldn't believe what this bird was doing. But while I was stood there in awe of this peregrine, I'd actually forgotten that the real star was the pigeon, because for every time that peregrine moved, the pigeon outmaneuvered it. It was always 1 step ahead of the peregrine. And you'd think automatically these birds of mine, when they're up there, the peregrines go, you'd think they'd come down, but they don't. They go up, they go higher. And I couldn't understand why they were doing that, because if it was me, the first thing you would think, well, I better get down to the safety of the shed or the cage or wherever. But they don't, they go higher. And watching them do this, because I've seen them do this about 6 times, and the reason that I really believe they do it, because they try to get above that peregrine. They need to get above it, and once they've got above that peregrine, then the element of surprise is gone. It's done. Then them pigeons, that group of pigeons, are then can see everything that peregrine's doing because they're above it. They don't want the peregrine above them because that thing can come down at 200 mile an hour and they mightn't see it. But once you've got the pigeons flying above the peregrine, it's game over. The element of surprise is gone because these birds of mine can outfly. I'm not saying they can't obviously do 200 mile an hour, but a peregrine can coming down with a wind. It can hit 200 mile an hour. But on a straight, level surface, peregrines are no faster than my pigeons, but they're a damn sight faster than, say, a roller. And this is why I don't get caught out like other people are streets away from me or getting 20 and 30 birds a year taken. I haven't bred any of these birds for a long time, and I'll only breed them if my numbers come down or I just want to increase them. But as it stands, they're not. And this is the sole reason I picked Budapest high flyers, because of the flying ability. I was actually talking to one person who had these birds, and I was talking to him on the phone, and he told me the reason he got rid of the Budapest high flyers was because he said, and these are his words, he said, I got rid of them because they don't fly like other high flyers. He was missing the point. You don't want them to fly like other high flyers, because if they do, they're going up there, they're going round plodding, magic roundabout, 10, 12 hours or whatever they're doing, and they're slow. These birds aren't. They're quick. Same as the Viennas, they're quick. And it doesn't take them long to wise up to peregrines and sparrowhawks. And like I said before, 2 of them did get caught out. Now, I know kind of how this happened, but I didn't see it happen because I was stood in my yard one day, and I have a sloped roof over my kitchen. I was stood 8 foot from my pigeons. I seen the sparrowhawk coming down towards the kitchen, and without it even looking, it knew them birds were there. It just dropped. It just dropped straight down. So the birds didn't even see it because they were sort of like blindsided. They can't see because the roof's there. The bird at the last second did see it, and it fell into the yard. This sparrowhawk fell into my yard. I was 8 foot away, and it was still trying to grab this pigeon. So as I ran to it, it changed its mind, and then it flew off. So I was kind of lucky that day. Then I did get 2 that came back with holes in them. I didn't even see them attacks because the ambush pigeons, they're sneaky. This is what I hate about them. They don't come out in the open like a peregrine to grab them. They'll just, and this is why they're so successful, because they'll come in where your birds don't see them. They'll just drop. But these 2 birds now are now back flying, and I honestly didn't think either of them would live when I seen the holes in the back. Like I say, I do have a video of that I took on my phone if anyone's interested, but I honestly thought both birds were going to die, but they didn't. And I believe this is down to the type of birds that I've got. So what I'm saying to people, if you're getting a lot of problems and it's a matter of you giving up with pigeons because you're getting hit with them, you might want to think about changing the breed to a Vienna or a Budapest. There's probably others out there that I haven't even seen or looked into, which I won't now because I'm going to stick with the Budapest. But basically, you need a very athletic pigeon, a quick pigeon, a pigeon that can spin on a sixpence, as they used to say in the old days. Something that can. There's no. When my birds go, I don't know what they're going to do. I can tell you they don't fly right up into the sky and go around in a circle and then come down. Some days they'll go higher than others. They'll go clockwise, then they'll change it, then they're anti-clockwise. They're up to do these little short circles. They do this corkscrew thing that is kind of weird. But the reason that if you watch them, they're never in one spot long. They're constantly changing the position. So I suppose any bird of prey watching that it'll have a problem working that out. I've seen a sparrowhawk coming down my road, and my pigeons virtually flew in front of it. It looked, and it just carried on. Now, I don't know whether that's because it wasn't hungry, or the fact it kind of looked and thought that's too much effort. And that's what I'm hoping to think. There's just too much effort for them to try and catch one of my birds, because they're not just going to grab it, unless they don't see it coming. But if these things can evade peregrines and sparrowhawks, and I've kept them here for 3 years without one death, I'm doing pretty well. If I was to lose a couple a year, I'm doing pretty well, because the bloke round the corner's losing 20. The bloke 3 or 4 streets away, he's losing nearly 40 birds a year. So a couple of my birds isn't that bad. But fingers crossed, 3 years of flying, I haven't had one death. And I put that down to the type of pigeon. So sometimes you've got to keep the pigeon that fits in your situation. If you live in an area where you've got no hawks and stuff, and you want to keep rollers, there's no problem. But if you're living in an area, which most of us are now, where you're constantly losing birds day in, day out, and every day your heart sinks when you let your birds out, and then you let 30 out and 29 come back, and you know why, and then the next day you lose another one. There's no fun in that. You know what I'm saying? There's no fun anymore. The pleasure of it is gone for me if that was happening, because I'd be too busy worrying about what was going on in the sky. But me, nah, I kicked them out. There you go. And after 3 years, they're still all coming back. But I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, because one day one of my pigeons is going to fly left when it should have went right, and it'll get caught on a silly mistake. But they're doing well. So maybe, you know, if you think they're packing in, maybe change your birds. But this is just the way I see it. Some people might think I'm talking a load of crap. But if you start listening to people and looking around, I'll put money on the bulk of birds that get taken every year as rollers. But anyway, thank you for listening to my rant. I'm done. So please subscribe, comment, thumb it up, thumb it down. Let me know how many birds you're losing, if you've got rollers, if that's what's been taken. But I'll be back in another video soon. So bye for now.